Have you ever wondered if humanity had a close call? A moment when our story almost ended before it truly began? It's a thought that can, send a shiver down your spine. We see ourselves as the masters of this planet, a species of billions, our cities glowing brightly against the dark canvas of space. But this was not always our reality. There was a time long before written history, before the pyramids were built, or the first cities rose, when our ancestors stood on the very edge of a silent, lonely abyss. They were not many, they were few, and they were fighting for the very existence of our kind, a whisper away from being erased from the earth forever. Imagine a world not teeming with people, but sparsely populated by small, scattered bands of our ancestors. These were not the confident, world-shaping humans we know today. They were simply another large animal trying to make it to the next sunrise. They faced predators, disease, and the unpredictable whims of nature. For them, survival was a daily struggle, a constant negotiation with a world that was often hostile and unforgiving. Their numbers were fragile, a tiny flickering flame in the vast wilderness. A single catastrophe, a sudden dramatic shift in their environment, could have been enough to snuff out that flame for good. The catastrophe arrived with a roar that echoed across the planet. Around 74,000 years ago, a supervolcano in what is now Sumatra, Indonesia, erupted with unimaginable force. We call it the Toba eruption. It was not just any volcanic eruption, it was one of the largest explosive events in the last 2 million years. It spewed a colossal cloud of ash and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere, a dark blanket that slowly, relentlessly, wrapped itself around the entire globe. The sun, the source of all life and warmth, grew dim. The world began to get cold, very cold. This event triggered what scientists call a volcanic winter. For years, possibly even a decade, global temperatures plummeted. Summers failed, and the seasons blurred into a long, grueling period of cold and darkness. For the small populations of early humans scattered across Africa, Asia, and Europe, this was a disaster of apocalyptic proportions. The plants they gathered for food withered and died. The animals they hunted either perished or migrated to places unknown. The familiar world they knew, the rhythms of nature they depended on, simply collapsed. It was a world plunged into a nuclear winter-like state, an age of twilight. This period is now known as the Toba catastrophe theory, and it's linked to a fascinating and honestly terrifying concept in genetics, a population bottleneck. By studying our DNA, scientists have found evidence that at some point in our deep past, the human population crashed. Our numbers dwindled to a shockingly small figure, perhaps as few as 3,000 to 10,000 individuals. Imagine that. The entire future of humanity, everyone who has ever lived and will ever live, depended on a group of survivors small enough to fit into a modern-day village. They were all that was left. This was the ultimate test. It was not a battle of strength against a single foe, but a war of attrition against a hostile world. Every day was a struggle for warmth, for a single mouthful of food, for the energy to see another sunrise through the hazy, gray sky. The threat of extinction was not an abstract idea, it was a constant, chilling presence. The human species was hanging by the thinnest of threads. One more failed hunt, one more bout of sickness, one more unforgiving winter, and our story could have ended right there, in the cold and the ash. So how did we survive? How did this tiny, fragile population pull back from the edge of oblivion? The answer is not found in one single heroic act, but in the quiet, persistent power of human ingenuity and cooperation. Faced with a world where their old ways of life no longer worked, our ancestors were forced to adapt or die. They did not have written language or advanced science, but they had something just as powerful, a creative and flexible mind. They began to think differently, to innovate, and to rely on each other like never before. One of the key adaptations was likely a shift in social structures. The small, scattered bands of humans had to become more connected. They formed larger networks, sharing information and resources over greater distances. A new tool discovered by one group, or a new hunting technique, could be passed along to another. This web of social learning was our secret weapon. It meant that a good idea didn't die with the person who had it. It could spread, evolve, and benefit the entire community. Cooperation became more important than competition. In a world of scarcity, sharing was not just a kindness, it was a survival strategy. This era also saw a leap in our technological toolkit. Humans began crafting more sophisticated and diverse tools. They developed smaller, more refined stone points, known as microliths, which could be attached to spears or used as arrowheads. This made hunting more efficient and less risky, allowing them to take down prey from a safer distance. They learned to make better clothing from animal hides to fend off the relentless cold. They became masters of fire not just for warmth and cooking, but as a central hub for social life, a place to share stories, plan, and keep the darkness at bay. Perhaps most importantly, this period may have spurred a revolution in how we communicated. While we can't know for sure, it's possible that the pressure of this crisis pushed our ancestors to develop more complex language. The need to plan intricate hunts, to share knowledge about distant resources, and to maintain social bonds in larger groups would have demanded a more powerful form of communication. They needed to tell stories, to teach their children, to remember the past and plan for the future. This cognitive leap, this enhanced ability to think and speak in symbols, was the ultimate tool for survival. Emerging from the long winter, the survivors were not the same people who had entered it. They were fundamentally changed, forged in the crucible of near extinction. The small, resilient population that made it through the bottleneck was tougher, smarter, and more socially connected than ever before. They carried within them the genetic and cultural traits that had allowed them to endure the harshest test imaginable. This handful of survivors became the springboard for a new chapter in the human story, a chapter of unprecedented expansion and innovation across the entire planet. Once the climate began to stabilize and the world warmed again, these newly equipped humans were perfectly poised to thrive. They carried their advanced toolkits, their sophisticated social networks, and their powerful cognitive abilities with them as they began to move. This is likely what fueled the Great Out-of-Africa migration, where modern humans spread from their ancestral homeland to populate every corner of the globe. They were no longer just another animal adapting to a niche. They were a species capable of adapting the niche to themselves, of colonizing every environment from frozen tundras to dense jungles. The legacy of this survival is woven into the fabric of modern life, though we rarely notice it. The incredible genetic similarity among all humans today is a direct result of this population bottleneck. We may look different on the outside, with a beautiful diversity of skin tones, hair textures, and facial features, but underneath, we are all remarkably alike. We are all descendants of that small group of survivors. The crisis that almost wiped us out also brought us closer together, making us one single extended family that shares a common dramatic past. This era of recovery also set the stage for the next great human revolution, the invention of agriculture. The cognitive flexibility, social cooperation, and innovative spirit that got our ancestors through the Toba catastrophe were the same skills they would later use to domesticate plants and animals. They learned to manipulate their environment on a grand scale, ensuring a more stable food supply, and allowing for the rise of villages, cities, and civilizations. The shadow of the volcano gave way to the dawn of a new world, a world that our ancestors, against all odds, had built. The story of the Toba bottleneck is more than just a fascinating piece of prehistory. It is a profound lesson in resilience. It teaches us that humanity has faced existential threats before and has found a way through. It reminds us that our greatest strengths are not our physical power, but our ability to think creatively, to work together, and to share knowledge. When the world grew dark and cold, we did not give up. We huddled closer, we thought harder, and we lit a fire that has been burning ever since. This is a powerful testament to the indomitable spirit of our species. This story also carries a message of deep hope. It shows that even from the most desperate of circumstances, a new beginning is possible. From a population of just a few thousand individuals, we grew to a global family of 8 billion. We went from the brink of extinction to walking on the moon. This incredible journey demonstrates our capacity for recovery and growth. It proves that no matter how dire the situation seems, there is always potential for a better future, as long as we are willing to adapt and cooperate. Our own history is the greatest comeback story ever told. Today, we face new challenges on a global scale: climate change, pandemics, and political instability. It can be easy to feel overwhelmed, to think that the problems are too big to solve. But our ancestors faced a challenge that was, in many ways, even more absolute. They did not have science or technology to guide them, only their wits and each other. Their survival is a whisper from the past, reminding us that we have it within us to overcome the greatest of obstacles. We are the descendants of the ultimate survivors. So the next time you look at the incredible diversity of humanity, From the bustling streets of Tokyo to the quiet villages of the Andes, remember our shared origin. Remember the long winter and the small band of ancestors who refused to let our flame go out. Their legacy is a call to action. It urges us to use our collective intelligence, our capacity for compassion, and our shared ingenuity to face the challenges of our own time. Our past shows us it is possible. Our future depends on us making it so.